Welcome to Table Talk. I'm Rich.
And I'm Rob.
And today we're talking about World War II. And if you don't know, Rob is not Alex. For those of you, some of our astute viewers and astute listeners, if you heard a different voice in your ears, it's because I'm actually joined today by none other than my brother, my bro. Let's welcome Rob to the show with a nice big round of applause. There we go.
Hi, everybody. Thank
Everybody
you.
everywhere in the world is clapping for you, Rob.
I am the more attractive brother. I will say that.
Wow. Right out the gate. We didn't even wait for it.
No.
There it is. You just went straight for it.
I'm sorry, listeners. Turn on your video.
There's no ramp up to that at all. Like, we're just out of the gate, just making brotherly comments. I love it. Fantastic.
There will be a lot of those.
Well, welcome to the show, Rob. I'm glad you're here. This is exciting.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Just so everybody knows, right? Alex is the Alex part of Table Talk with Rich and Alex. Today it's Table Talk with Rich and Rob because Alex and his wife Caroline are expecting, like right now. So we decided to give Alex the month off, give him some time to be with his family, well-deserved time to be with his family, and we wanted to make sure that we could still keep the show going. So now we got Rob sitting here, ready to talk about beer and board games and absolutely everything else, because that's what the show is about. So yeah, well, let's start off with the beer. What we're talking World War II, Rob. So what type of beer did you get? Let's share that first.
Yeah. So my first pairing here, and I slightly tongue in cheek, but when you're playing a board game, you have to get into the board game, and I mean it's World War II, so somebody has to play the Axis side of the board. So somebody's got to drink the Axis side of the beer.
Nice.
So we're drinking. Reisdorf Kolsch.
Reisdorf Kolsch. All right.
Got myself a nice 16-ouncer here, so enjoy it throughout the show.
Oh yeah, that looks like it'll last you through the show for sure.
What about you? What are you drinking?
I will be drinking. Sorry, I got like 3 beers behind me. I'm gonna do this one. It kind of goes in before I lift it up. It kind of goes into the effects of World War II, which is going to be one of our discussion topics today, right? The aftermath of World War II. And I believe it kind of plays into that a little bit. It's called Operation Plowshare. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, I honestly didn't know what it was until I bought this and actually looked into it. But it's actually fairly interesting. And again, in another episode that Rob and I are going to do later this month, we're going to talk about the effects of World War II. And Operation Plowshare was basically this, from my understanding, and again, if you know more about it, please comment, but it's this, it was like nuclear technology, nuclear bombs, right? It was basically this mission to try and use nuclear warheads for like operational purposes, not non-military purposes, agriculturally. What? Yeah, agriculturally. It was like this whole plan. This Plowshare was basically like they're trying to figure out if they could if there was different ways of cultivating and stuff like that with nuclear warheads. So wow. Yeah, we'll get into it at a later date. So that's where you're gonna kind of see that. But just a little teaser. But yeah, wow. There was a commercial approach apparently back in the 50s to actually getting nuclear warheads into the commercial use. I guess. Wow,
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's a little bizarre.
You don't start glowing in the dark after you drink that.
Right. Yeah. I think I'll be fine. But yeah, we can turn the lights out afterwards to see.
That's good.
Just got like veins just like glowing in the dark. But yeah, well, cool. So this is Operation Plowshare. So this is from Urban Artifact. It's a blackberry Midwest fruit tart, so it's a sour ale. It's from Urban Artifact Brewing out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So shout out to them. Where was your Kolsch from, Rob?
Oh, it's brewed in Germany.
Okay,
The rest of the label is in German. So
so you can't
if
read
I
it.
if I could tell you, I would.
Right, right.
It
I might
Cologne,
be.
Germany.
Where is it from?
Cologne, Germany.
Cologne, Germany. So
Yeah.
not only does that beer probably taste very good, it probably smells very nice too.
Oh yeah, it probably does. Maybe it'll make me smell nice.
There you go. All right. I do want to give a shout out before we move on to the game to Ciliano's Market. These guys helped me pick out a pretty good beer. They're the ones that usually helping me out with the beer selection. But yeah, they're the ones who suggested this because of that reason, and I'm very glad they did. But I haven't tasted it yet. But it's a sour ale, and I'm past my sour ale kick. Did you ever go on a sour beer
No.
kick? Have you had a sour
Most
beer
people
before?
don't. I have, and most people
Oh.
get through that very quickly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, there was
Yeah.
like 3 months where I was doing nothing but sours.
Really?
So
It's impressive.
yeah. I mean, it was like a phase. I'm over it now. Well, cheers to your Kolsch. Cheers to you. Cheers to Purdue Pete. And here's to World War II and a good discussion coming up.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right, cheers. Let's take some time before we get into the game just to kind of talk about us and being bros and growing up and playing games. You're a huge part of why Bruin Boards became a thing and why Table Talk is now a thing and all of that. So yeah. Well, what do you remember growing up with board games in particular? Like what kind of memories does that stir up for you with us or with family in general or friends? Or
Yeah, I think, some of my earliest memories, honestly, are the memories of being left out of board games. I think I remember
Hero Quest?
some of the older members of our family sitting down to play board games that were like too far advanced for us. And so we got to
Interesting.
sit on the couch and watch a movie, right?
Right.
And so I think from then on, I was like, what is this world? And how can I get into it? Because I love my brother and I love Mulan or whatever we were watching, but how many times can you watch that, right? I want to go play a board game.
A billion times. You can never not watch. There's not enough. You can watch Mulan endlessly, in my opinion.
And honestly, that was probably pre-Mulan, but
interesting. That's not where my brain goes for you. And for me, like board games were like your thing and Rusty's thing, our oldest brother.
Really?
Yeah, I distinctly remember not being into anything other than like what we were playing at family night, which were games like Sequence, which we had in the show last month, Aggravation, which is kind of a different version of Sorry, basically. Yeah, I remember walking by Rusty's room upstairs, and you guys had Risk out on the original Risk, which is the original Risk behind you, right?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
No, that's a remake. But yeah.
The original one had like the little pieces, the Roman numerals, right? Yeah. So I remember you guys had a game going, and I was like, "That's stupid." Like, I don't know, like just being like, I think it was just because like I wasn't a part of it. And again, it's kind of the same for me. Like I felt like you guys had something going that I wasn't involved in, nor was I really that interested at the time. And then I think for me it really hit in like high school where I was like really getting into some more detailed board games and stuff like that. But that was, again, you were heavily involved with that. It was a lot of our my high school friends would come over on Friday nights and we'd all play Risk together. And that got me into like Carcassonne. The first time I played Carcassonne was with a high school buddy of mine, Jacob Cooper, who is actually a huge fan of the show. So shout out to Coop. Yeah, first time playing Carcassonne, he taught me how to play Carcassonne. That's another game that kind of opened my eyes. But yeah, what was do you remember the game? Was I right? Was it Hero Quest that
Oh yeah, it was Hero Quest.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember like mom and dad and our older siblings would be playing Hero Quest on the dining room table, right? And they'd set it up hours in advance, and we'd go eat dinner, and then we would get our movie going, and they would go to the dining room and play. And I remember like scouring over the board, like, what are they doing?
Yeah, what
there?
is this?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those games now that's like iconic, and I kind of wish I've never actually played it. So I'd love to be able to get my hands on it and play it with somebody. But I think after that it was mom and dad kind of saw that I think you and I were interested.
Mm-hmm.
So we were playing games like Sequence and Payday and Monopoly, Aggravation. We played a lot of Aggravation.
And we got kind of into other games. We never really played the same game over and over and over again. So it was pretty eclectic. I remember growing up.
Yeah.
If there was a new game that seemed like it was, good family wise, then it seems like we tried it out. We always had trail mix, and we always had, pizza or something. The cardboard table in the middle of the room. Great memories. I love that. Yep. It is interesting though that's how, like, it's kind of the same. The way I got into games is kind of like, oh, what are they doing in there? And you were kind of the same way, but with mom and dad. I remember those figures. I remember just being interested in like the little goblins or whatever. The little figures that Hero Quest had, and I would just try and play with them as like action figures, which is probably sacrilege, but it's that was my mind as a kid. And then we're about a year apart for those of you that are interested. I am the younger one, even though I am better looking, and
to get in.
And then we played a lot of Risk growing up. The story with Bruin boards and how that came to play, I want you to share what you remember of that, because honestly, back in the day, we had this idea, back, 2014, 2015, you think?
Yeah. Around there.
So those of you who don't know, Table Talk is a thing because it's kind of a branch out of Bruin boards, which is this community of board gamers that I worked really hard to get set up in Brooklyn. We went out to, we've talked about it on the show before, but if this is your first time watching or listening, maybe you don't know, where I basically bring a whole bunch of board games to a local bar or brewery in Brooklyn, and people would just come and play games with us, and we created this membership situation. So, and breweries were getting involved, and there was actually some money being made. It was kind of this really, 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 really small business that was happening in Brooklyn, which is why Alex and I started doing the podcast as well, to kind of promote those events and just kind of have something else that we could do that was associated with it. All of that began in Speedway, Indiana, at least from my memory, where Rob and I really just, and in my mind, you really spearheaded it. Like, you were the one that really was kind of leading the conversation with that. Do you remember the name of the bar?
I don't remember the name of the bar, but it was kind of a subshoot of Delora Motorsports. They have a place there in Speedway that builds race cars.
Right. Because I remember the race cars being on display. Yeah. And
they had, as part of their like property there, they had a little restaurant bar area that they managed. I think it's out of business now, but the manager there loved the idea of what we were doing and was all in. And really that idea stemmed from just wanting to share games with people, And I think 2013, 2014, 2015, we're in this time where like the online stuff is exploding.
Right.
I'm in a personal place where all my friends have either, they got families, they've moved away, and I did too. I had my own family.
Like immediately post college for both of us, pretty much.
Yeah,
right. Somewhat newly married for both of us too, and I remember kind of being in that stage where we wanted to keep it alive, the gaming life a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but also like not only keep it alive, but also let people experience more than just like Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
And so like take games to the people, take good games to the people, and what else to lubricate that social experience than pairing it with beer, right? So naturally doing it in a bar made sense, or doing it with some sort of other coffee or tea or some other experience, and then teaching people games was kind of the point. And we started doing it there in Speedway, and
Yeah.
we did 1 or 2 or 3, and that was kind of
Yeah.
it. I had to decide whether we were going that way or whether I was going to
Yeah.
continue with like my job and my career. So
Right. And that's the thing is it was actually getting to a point where it was successful. And I think both of us were like surprised by
oh
that
yeah,
pleasantly, but at the same time, kind of like, oh, like we kind of hit something, but we don't really know if we can follow through with it.
right.
And that was kind of heartbreaking too. And right, I mean, I was just married. I just got married,
Yep.
and was trying to find work in South Bend, Indiana. It was, I didn't really have a solid job nailed down, and I just remember, those were the highlights of of that time. Apart from being newly
Yep.
married to my lovely wife and spending time with her, but those were the highlights of driving down to Speedway to have a game night with a whole bunch of people. I mean, one night we had, I think the night that really kind of boom, popped our eyes open was, I think you were there alone for some reason. I don't think I was able to make it, but you had like 20 some people show up one
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
And
Intentionally show up. Like
yeah,
that's not even the people that we like showed up to eat, and we just kind of like, hey, come on,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
And
when people show up for the event.
right. And it was your collection of games pretty much
Yeah.
that everybody was living off of for the night. They just grabbed the stack and then they would take it to a table. And you and I actually sat down at a table and played. I remember playing, was it Jack the Ripper one night?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
where you're like secretly chasing somebody, a guy across the board. Um, and yeah, and we had people. I mean, the whole place was booming. We ended up getting sponsored. I mean, pretty much by Sun King,
Yeah.
and
They were picking
we
us up.
had
Yeah.
we had no idea what we were getting into. And then it just kind of, like you said, it just kind of fizzled out a little bit because we both had lives that we had to tend to. And then Andy and I, Andy got a job in Brooklyn, and that's how we ended up being in Brooklyn. We moved away, and then with your blessing, kind of built it back up in Brooklyn, and turned it into Bruin Boards, which was the URL that was available because
Yeah.
we had called it Boards and Brew up until that point, and then turned it into Bruin Boards, and then kind of made it what it was in Brooklyn, which it was a huge success in Brooklyn. But I knew it was going to be because we had tested it out already.
Yeah.
And unfortunately now it's nothing because because of COVID, and hopefully we can get that built up again in the future. That's really the plan, but the future's uncertain still a little bit. But now the table talk is here, and that's you're a huge part of why it even exists in the first place. So I'm so happy to have you on it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, honestly, I'm honored to be here, and it's really cool to see you take something that I probably didn't have enough time to do and take it somewhere else and just like
right,
make it your own thing. And especially in Brooklyn, where there's like you got the population density, the people that want to get out, you got all that stuff. It's just it was a combination for success, and you did it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and huge shout out to all the Brooklyn Bruin Boards members that haven't been able to game with us for almost a whole year now. We know you're watching, and we know I got a message from a couple members almost right before the show, really, that were saying how much they missed the events and everything. So shout out to all you guys. We hope everybody's doing well, and hopefully, we shoot these episodes in advance. Who knows what's going to happen in another month? But as of right now, we're still not able to do events. So shout out to all you guys, and hopefully in the future we can build that back up. But this guy right here is a big part of it, so you have just as much him to thank as you do for me. And the last thing I do want to talk about is Gen Con 2019. Kind of as a celebration of those memories and everything, we decided to go to Gen Con, and I know I have a photo that I'm going to have up right now of us at Gen Con, just kind of enjoying the nerdiness of all of it. We went with another Bruin Boards member named Sean Wheeler, who was really energetic and really into it. We ended up, we stopped by a lot of booths. We actually got a lot of support for Bruin Boards from some of the local vendors. We stopped at a lot of places and talked to a lot of people about that. What stood out to you about Gen Con that you really remember?
Honestly, I think living in Central Indiana all my life, it's been right here.
Yeah,
I've just never gone.
right.
So, one, the sheer size of it is insane. I mean,
Yeah.
It's the entire convention center, Lucas Oil Stadium, streets downtown. Like it's just huge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but aside from that, there's really and I'd never anticipated going to Gen Con with almost like a business mind. Like I always
Yeah.
envisioned going for pleasure, just to play games and have fun.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it was really cool to see how the industry works and
Mm-hmm.
how interconnected really everything is, whether it's design, artwork, playtesting,
Mm-hmm.
even like into the costumes and that kind of stuff. All that
Yeah.
stuff it's a really small world. I mean, it's
Yeah.
huge, but it's
Yeah.
also tiny. So I think that was kind of one of my biggest eye-opening things while I was there was like, oh yeah, like we talked to this guy and he says I can't help you, but
Mm-hmm.
this person can, that person can go over
Yeah,
there. Like,
they'll be all for it. Go talk to them.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was really cool to me to
Yeah.
experience. The other thing that I took away from Gen Con was that we're onto something.
Yeah.
Like nobody was doing it.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say that. There are people doing this other
Right. Yeah,
places.
yeah. You're right.
But it's like every time you go up and you engage and you tell people what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're just taking games we're taking board games to bars and inviting people to play them.
Yeah.
Like everybody was like, that's awesome. There was like so much confirmation that what we had was a good idea. Right.
Right. Yeah.
That was cool to see. Too.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
the
That was
energy
cool.
behind it.
And also, I don't know if a lot of people know if Broom Boards Broom Boards members are watching. I mean, the game collection I started out with in Brooklyn is Rob's games collection. These games behind me are Rob's games. Like these are your games. I just haven't returned them to you yet. I apologize.
They're yours at this point.
But Rob basically donated games to me to take out to Brooklyn to start the events. So again, just another thing that, a part of the way that you're connected with all of that and how it couldn't have happened. I would have had to shell out a lot of money to build up the game capital that I would have needed to do that. So thank you so much for all of that. And hopefully once we're all back and ready, now that we live a little bit closer together, we're hoping to get the events up and running in, where I'm at right now, Grand Rapids. Hoping to maybe move it down to Indianapolis too, now that we're within traveling distance. And again, we want to get it back up and running in Brooklyn. We do have some volunteers that have voiced their interest in doing that in Brooklyn. So hopefully all that comes to fruition. Again, I'm not making any promises, but that's on the agenda. But yeah, that's great. Just a little bit about the history with us and all that. So before we get into the game, I do want to actually, same as usual. If you're listening to the podcast, be sure to check out the YouTube channel, Table Talk with Rich and Alex. In this case, Table Talk with Rich and Rob. And if you're watching the YouTube channel, please know that there's also the podcast version out there that you can listen to. Last but not least, this month we are making a big step in actually format-wise. We're trying to make the episodes more digestible for everybody. A lot of you out there are listening to the whole thing, an hour and a half of listening, which is awesome. It's bizarre to think that people are actually sitting down to listen to what me and my brother or me and my friend have to say. Because like we said, we're not experts. We're just guys that like to talk about beer and board games and absolutely everything else. So thank you so much for your support and doing all that. We're gonna change things just a little bit to try and make it more digestible for everybody else. Just to try and make these videos more digestible and actually get videos out on a weekly basis. So this episode is only going to be hopefully about 20 minutes long. We're probably 20 minutes in already. But it's just going to be the beer and the board games in this conversation. And next week, Rob and I are going to be talking about, probably in the same clothes. Next week, we're going to be talking about our stories of World War II. So we're just going to split the discussion topics up and kind of release them slowly. So that way, you guys can kind of, you have weekly content that you can tune into. You can maybe devote, the appropriate amount of time to actually listening to a lot more of the conversation instead of having to dig in really deep on an hour and a half type of episode. For those of you that do listen to the whole thing and like the whole thing, we're going to keep that as well. So at the end of the month, we're going to release the entire shoot for you. So if you liked just watching the whole thing in one go, we'll do that as well, but we're also going to split it up into different segments as well. So just a format change that we're practicing with, and we want to know what you think about it. So feel free to let us know in the comments, and also be sure to subscribe because that helps us out a lot with moving this whole process forward. So cool. All right, you ready to talk board game?
I am.
All right, here it is, Memoir 44. I love the artwork on this. I mean, I can't say anything about it, and before actually just referencing this amazing. This is the cover of the box, and it's just so stunning to me. I want to talk about the artist first, which is so unusual, but it's beautiful artwork. I'm going to butcher the names, but Cyril Dijon, Julien Delval, Don Perrin, and Claude Rica are the artists who did the artwork for this game. So it's the first thing I noticed about the game the first time Rob and I played it. Rob is the one who introduced this game to me. But yeah, it was a beautiful game. So a little bit about Memoir 44. It's 2 to 8 players. It takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play. It's for ages 8 and up. The designer is Richard Borg, not Richard Bray. And of course, it's published in 2004 by Days of Wonder, which is easily one of my favorite board game publishing companies. Rob, I see you got the Ticket to Ride behind you.
Yeah, I got Ticket to Ride, and then I have 8-year-old right now, and he loves the Ticket to Ride, the first Journey one, the kids version. It's great.
Okay. Yeah, so Days of Wonder, I mean, they're just known for, in my opinion, great games. I got Small World behind me. It's they're just great go-to games. If you're new to gaming, if you're new to kind of I guess what we've deemed craft gaming, then
Euro gaming.
Euro gaming. That's a better term. Thank you. The Days of Wonder is a great way to get into that because they have some really great games. So anyway, that's Days of Wonder. So Memoir 44 is a historical board game where players face off in stylized battles of some of the most famous historic battles of World War II, including Omaha Beach, Pegasus Bridge, Operation Cobra, and the Ardennes. So this is Pegasus Bridge. Actually, this is an image of the kind of the opening scenario that you kind of start off with Memoir 44. So I think it's supposed to be a lake in the middle, and then you have the rivers to the sides. The game comes with all these hexagons, these hexagon tiles that you can just remake the board. So you swipe all those tiles off the board, and then you can remake a whole different map based off of what the game actually shows you, which is pretty cool. And one thing I will say about this game is that they went this route of like actually, I mean, theme is great with any game, right? Theme is important. These guys, like, they actually go so far as to like explain the battle to you, like the historical battle. Who goes first? It's usually played as a 2-player game, so you have Axis on one side, allies on one side. So the blue in this scenario are the ally, or sorry, the green are the allies, the blue are the Axis. They go so far as like who even had like the upper hand at the beginning of the battle. So like who goes first is kind of dependent on who kind of had the element of surprise at some point. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then not to put you on the spot, Rob, but we see the cards there. Do you want to go into a little bit of how the card play goes?
Yeah, so you can't really see the full side of the card there, but that green card. That's better. Yeah, so those green cards there, the attack cards, the recon cards, they're the driving force of the mechanics of the game. So you have this draw and discard pile that you're pulling these cards from, and then they have typically like left side, right side, center of the board, and it breaks it up into different zones. So that attack card on the left, it has a 3-unit movement, so you can play that card and then move the 3 units on the left side of that board and do your actions then with those units during your turn.
Yeah. Right, and it's such a great mechanic. It's a simple mechanic, but it's absolutely brilliant because, and again, this is like tactical movement style gameplay where which can be a little tedious sometimes because it's when you're trying to take something very physical, like a battle or like a hand-to-hand combat type of fight, and put it into a board game. You kind of have to break it down if you really kind of want to recreate that. You would have to break it down into like this tactical level of mechanics, which is why a lot of board games will like go away from that, and they'll kind of create, a card game that has like hit points and stuff like that will kind of go away from it. I like how they just kind of steer into it hard. Certain, like the tanks can move 3 hexagons. You'll see the tanks over here. The infantry units can move up to 2, or they can move 1 in battle. And there's certain line of sight rules that are associated with this. But yeah, you're really limited to the cards that you have and which section of the board. So you have the left section, the middle section, and the right section. So if you really have the upper hand on one side of the board, but you don't have any cards to play over there, then you're really kind of stuck. So you have to be flexible.
You're limited for sure. It can be like, it's almost like a resource allocation kind of thing, but like the game, the cards, you're really at the mercy of what kind of cards you draw. And, whether you like that kind of luck style draw or not, there's also some strategy there too, right? Like I'm going to save that, like that Recon and Force card in the middle. It's kind of a nice card to have if I need to, strategically gain ground across the board. So I'm going to hold on to that card for a minute and keep that back. So, those cards, there's definitely some drawbacks to them, but if you use them right, they can be an asset too.
Right. And we're not going to go into all the details with the terrain and the rules of movement and all that stuff, but all those cards lined up on the left give you different information about how different units can seek cover, like in the woods, or how you can't see across or through a city or something like that. There's certain rule dynamics to movement and line of sight that make this game so fun. So I encourage you to look it up and play it with friends and family, because it really is. It's one of the best 2-player games, in my opinion, that I've ever played.
I'd agree with that.
Just because it's so fun. You got the dice down here too. We haven't talked about the dice, but in order to attack, this is pretty common with tactical games. In order to attack, you have to roll a certain amount of dice. Grenades are a hit on anything. If you're targeting tanks, you have to roll tanks or a grenade. If you're targeting infantry, you have to roll a grenade or an infantry unit, which is the blue guy. There's a retreat rule as well, which is so fun. If you roll a flag, the unit, if they don't have any protection, they have to move back a hexagon, which is just kind of, it is great strategically to like kind of move somebody else's unit where they didn't want it to be, or to just move them back. But anyway, so the game, it includes 15 different battle scenarios and features our double-sided hex game board. It has a double-sided hex game board. So the previous picture, let me go back to it. This is all land terrain. All right, as you can see, it's all green. And then I go to the next picture, and we actually have kind of a D-Day situation where you have the water, and then you have troops landing on the beach, and then you have the land behind it. So this is just 2 different sides of the same board that's offered. So you can play on one side or the other. There's different scenarios that are offered for them. So each scenario mimics the historical terrain, troop placements, and objectives of each army. These are the cards, like Rob was saying. So each player is listed as a commander, and the commanders deploy troops through command and tactic cards. So applying the unique skills of your unit, infantry, paratrooper, tank, artillery, and even resistance fighters to your greatest strengths. There's like you see, there's an ambush card. There's some specialty cards that will tell you what to do if you can move certain units at a time. There's one card that I love that's like behind enemy lines.
I knew you were going to bring that card in. You use that card against me every time. How do you get it?
I always end up getting it. You can basically like move a unit 3 hexes, which is like crazy, unheard of. And then you can still battle somebody, and then you can move 3 hexes more. It's a very powerful card. I don't feel like it's overpowered by any means. It's just
Oh, I feel like it is.
you
But it's
do
just
really.
because it's been played against me so many times.
Oh well, then of course you would.
I've never got to use it.
um, just a closer shot of the figures. Um, so in addition to the double-sided game board, there's over 144 amazingly detailed army miniatures, which include historically accurate infantry, tanks, artillery, and then there's 36 obstacle pieces, 60 illustrated command cards, 44 special terrain tiles, and 8 custom wooden dice. The wooden dice, actually, I never really thought about it, but it is a good touch, I think, with the wooden dice. The only complaint I have with the wooden dice is that the paint fades on them after a while, but yeah, that's a close-up shot. You got the wire, which slows down infantry units going in and out of that. I think we got sandbags there in the background too. So
which those provide retreat cover.
Yeah.
So if you have to retreat, it prevents you from having to retreat. Those are
right. Yeah. If you experience any OCD symptoms, this game can be a little irritating because if not all of your guys are pointing in the right direction, like this guy right here, this bothers me a lot because I feel like he's shooting in the wrong direction. So yeah.
Friendly fire.
Yeah, friendly fire.
It's the other fun thing I'll say about this game is the line of sight aspect of it is really cool. And that last picture was a good example of how sometimes that can be limiting because, you've got this group that's bundled in the back has no line of sight. They're worthless.
These guys.
So although it looks impressive, those guys they can't do anything. So
I think line of sight, they can fire up to 3 hexagons away. So you would think maybe these guys might be able to shoot this axis unit over here.
Yeah.
But really, they can only shoot about 3. You can see over this river, but you can only shoot anything about 3 hexes away. So you got 1 hex here, 1 hex here. They would have to be standing right here for them to have any capability of doing damage.
Yep.
But really, the further away they are, the less dice you can roll. That's one of the rules. So if they were right on top of them, like right here, which you can't be because you can't be on the river, but say the river wasn't here. If they were right here, then these 2 units can battle at 3 dice per. But the further away they are, the less dice you can roll. So pretty cool. And then actually in this picture, I didn't see this, but we have an objective token in the background too. So there's certain, in some scenarios, there are certain landmarks that if you have a unit on them to capture them, you'll score a point for your team, basically. And I believe it depends on the scenario, but I believe the average is about like 5 points you got to score, right?
Yeah.
That sound right?
Yep.
And you score points by eliminating the other player's units. So every unit you destroy is a point, and a unit is basically a collection of 4 infantry units or 3 tank units, give or take. So yeah, you score points by defeating units of the other player or capturing objectives that are on the board. I haven't gotten into the expansions. I've wanted to, but yeah, there's so many expansions, and these are just, I believe, just a few, if not all of them. It might be all of them. I haven't honestly looked into it, but we got Eastern Front, Pacific Theater, Operation Overlord. I have no idea what that is. If you guys are really into Memoir 44, let us know what these games are like, what they add to the Memoir 44 experience. New Flight sounds amazing, getting planes more involved. New Flight Plan is the name of the expansion. Winter Wars, the Ardennes, that sounds so interesting to me. Just don't have a lot of time to dig into all of that, but it looks fantastic, and it just kind of shows how successful this series really is and how loved it is, honestly. Well, have you played any of these, Rob?
I have not personally played any of them. I've seen Eastern Front, and it's pretty cool because it adds a whole other Russian army. So a whole new collection of all the pieces, but in
Gotcha.
like a tan for the Russian.
Gotcha.
The Russians on the east.
Yep.
I have seen the New Flight Plan. I haven't played it, but it does add like bombs and
Nice.
All these miniatures for the planes, fighters, and bombers.
Yeah.
And the quality's there. It's just up to par with the
Yeah.
rest of the games. Yeah.
Yeah. And then speaking of Gen Con, because this next photo is something that I think we would have seen at Gen Con. We didn't, but I thought you'd get a kick out of this photo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're looking at like a life size, not life size, but that tank over here on the left, that's like the size of our head, probably. Right? Or like at least the size of your hand, right? It's huge. This is a huge blown up version. I love the I don't know what that is. A bomber. It's a plane in the background. I don't know. We've got a train coming in. I have no. But we see the hexes on like this is the game.
Yep.
Somebody decided that I don't know what these horses are. Cavalry, or maybe just and look at this guy up here on the roof. This is just hilarious to me.
That's
somebody went through the effort of making this. But yeah, at Gen Con, Rob and I came across a lot of, or at least one specifically kind of game like this that was kind of a war game. It deals with the same aspect, line of sight and battling. There was one guy that was dressed up in like an admiral uniform. You remember that?
Yeah, he was awesome.
Yeah,
he was really engaged.
He was really into it.
He wanted us to sit down at that table and play.
Yeah,
yeah. These tabletops are impressive, and that miniature work is tough. Kudos to these guys for getting that stuff done. That's hard.
It's pretty funny
to do.
And then recently, I've come across the online version of Memoir 44. So if you aren't aware, or if you want to, so let's say you don't have the game. Let's say you don't want to go out and buy the game. You can at least play the game on Days of Wonder. Days of Wonder Online has access to all, pretty much, well, not all of their games. I won't say that, but they're well better known games like Ticket to Ride, Small World, Memoir 44. They have online versions that you can play on Days of Wonder Online. You just have to set up an account with them, and then there is like a points system, or like with any online gaming, you have to buy certain rights. But I think you can at least play one or two games for free.
Yeah, with game board purchases though, it does come with some sort of so many months worth of access to the online system.
Oh, does it? Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah. Yep. But this is like the online version. It's really fun. You can, it plays a lot faster. You can play with friends online as well. It starts you out as a private, which is kind of funny, and then it builds you up. The more you play, you can get promoted along the way. So yeah, it's pretty fun. But wanted to share that as well. Go check it out. That's Memoir 44, guys. There you go.
I just have one more thing. I think one of the frustrations of Memoir is some of the scenarios are very one-sided. But the rulebook encourages you to play the same scenario again, but turn the board around.
Yeah.
And see who gets the most victory points total between the two rounds.
Right. So which we've done.
There's scenarios that are almost impossible to win as one side or the other.
Yeah.
But turn the board around and play again and see how your opponent does.
Yeah. Right. Yep. That is satisfying when you're in a one-sided. It's an allies heavy percentage win. Like I think on the online game they actually have the percentages. They keep track of how many times this side has won and this side has won. So you can pick and choose. Like if you really like a good challenge, you can pick to play a game as like one side or the other, knowing that your chances of winning are probably about 30%. And then that really kind of, you may even lose that game, but like at least if you like put up a good fight, okay, well, my odds were really low that I would even like be in this game. So it helps. That's Memoir 44. That's our beer. And we're going to be back next week, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this kind of condensed format a little bit more. Hopefully it makes it more digestible for all you guys. But when you come back, we are going to be talking. Well, what are we talking about, Rob? We're talking about
World War II stories. We've each some stories to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to share World War II stories next week. What else do we got coming up? We got effects of the war, long-term effects of the war, and
then the last one's like we're going to talk about why is World War II so interesting to us still. I mean, almost generation later,
Mhm.
2 generations later.
Right.
So that's episode 4.
Yeah, that's going to be episode 4. Great. Well, thanks for watching and listening, guys. Again, click the like button. Go ahead and whack that subscribe button as well. I hate that lingo. Just if you like what we're doing, just subscribe. That's as easy as it gets. So
Yep.
So you can see more videos as they come up. But we'll see you guys next week. Until next time,
Be happy.
brew happy, and game on. Cheers. Not bad, bro.
I like it.
Yeah. All right.